What do you get when you take one human being, give them 10 points of talent, erase their whole upbringing, and stuff $750 million into their pockets? Of course, you get Michael Jackson, possibly the greatest performer the world has ever seen, replete with otherworldly dancing skills, the catchiest pop songs ever penned, uncertain facial characteristics, and bizarre spending habits that almost brought his flying empire crashing down. Take a look at Jackson's purchase of the Neverland Ranch for about $30 million. After that, Jackson made his own amusement park and petting zoo in his backyard. So for today's video, here are the incredibly expensive things Michael Jackson owns.
Superfinances.
Number 10. Bubbles the chimp. The most irritating aspect about renowned animals is their lack of appreciation for what they have. Imagine, for instance, Bubbles. Michael Jackson purchased the tiny chimp in the early 1980s, and despite the public scorn, he adored him and did all he could to care for him. Bubbles lived in a small crib next to Michael's Neverland bed, ate all the chocolates his little monkey stomach could manage, and used Michael's own toilet like a human. When it came time to work, Bubbles accompanied the singer throughout the globe, once even sharing green tea with the mayor of Osaka, Japan, an experience that a few people had. Bubbles, on the other hand, didn't realize how lucky he was. And as he got older, he became violent towards the pesky humans who bothered him all the time, and had to be sent to a refuge to calm down. At the age of 34, he is still living there. Number 9. Edward Scissorhands Hands. The very first cooperation between Tim Burton and Johnny Depp was undoubtedly a special moment for the entire world, as it was extensive before the two of them began collaborating on a regular basis on some hyper-stylized remake of a classic film, slaughtering our youth in the most opulent way possible. Unfortunately, Edward Scissorhands was not one of them. The brilliant protagonist character was created entirely in Burton's mind, and was shown as an incomplete artificial man with scissors for hands, thus the name. The legendary look was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Makeup, and that was all Jackson wanted to understand, as he seized the gloves with his Edward Money hands and wore them about the house, following his butler around. The shears were put up for sale when Jackson died, with an estimated worth of $3,600 to $5,300. Number 8. A hyperbaric oxygen chamber. What is hyperbaric oxygen treatment and how does it work? How am I supposed to know? Let me look it up for you on Google. So, allegedly, it's when a patient is put up in a pressurized tube and given pure oxygen to breathe. So, what is it that this is utilized for? Just a second. So, you're familiar with the bends? What causes oxygen deprivation among scuba divers? A hyperbaric oxygen chamber may assist by bursting problematic air bubbles in your blood vessels, while also minimizing the risk of infection. When Michael Jackson was caught sleeping in one of these chambers in 1986, it made front-page news in the hopes of slowing down the aging process. What else helped slow down the aging process? Creating a new face from an existing one. The tabloids didn't believe Jackson, so he later gave the case to a medical institute. He wanted to sleep on something more comfortable, so he didn't want to keep the case. Number 7. A Michael Jackson statue wearing the Batsuit. At a covered brainstorming conference to plan the music for Tim Burton's 1989 superhero picture Batman, it was proposed that Prince could do specific funk tunes for the film, while Jackson could undertake the more weepy love ballad tracks. Prince scoffed at this and every other suggestion, insisting on writing an altogether fresh studio album for the film, which the studio officials said was fine. Jackson has said many times that he is a big fan of the show, and he wants to play the Riddler in 1995's Batman Forever, and own a life-size statue of himself dressed as Batman. Number 6. An interesting and vast car collection. The continual purchase of really costly automobiles is a big motivation to become ultra-rich and famous, as I believe it's in the deal you make with the devil or whatever. Jackson went above and above his contract, with at least 4 private limousines, one of which was a 1999 Rolls-Royce Silver Seraph, replete with seats covered in premium leather and 24-karat gold adorning every surface. He also owned a 1990 Silver Spur 2 Rolls-Royce limo, which had a full-service bar inside. Number 5. Mannequin children. The presence of different life-size kid dolls littered all over his property didn't exactly help his character for a guy who had been suspected of some improper behaviors with his younger guests, as the Jackson competitors referred to photos of young mannequins reclining together as if in discussion, while others were set up in strange yoga stances. As the last black and white proof required, the guy was unquestionably guilty. Certainly, whatever the case, it doesn't matter whether you're black or white, and it takes a lot more than a weird fixation with a figurine children to imprison someone indefinitely, which is why Jackson was finally found not guilty of all charges. Number 4. MACAULAY CULKIN Collectibles. The long-standing connection between CULKIN and Jackson may have aroused some conservative eyes, but it ended up being one of Jackson's strongest defenses. When MACAULAY was around 10 years old, the two became friends and spent a lot of time together, roaming about the farm and sleeping in Jackson's bed, despite their 22-year age gap. When the issue of Jackson's sexual harassment charges resurfaced several years later, some media pointed to the pair's unusual friendship as a possible warning sign. CULKIN, on the other hand, held steadfast, rejecting all allegations as totally ludicrous, and even testifying under oath at Jackson's 2005 trial. Number 3. The MOONWALKER video game. To commemorate the above-mentioned MOONWALKER film's failure, Jackson chose to keep the idea alive by collaborating on various video games with the same name. The idea of such games was similar to the film's premise, which was similar to Jackson's delightfully perplexing imagination's real-life concept, in which Michael would dance his way through the situations and free abducted children from an evil adult dubbed Mr. Big. Because Michael would never permit himself to make genuine physical contact, he would shatter like a china teacup. The player would assume control of Jackson and attacked adversaries with what was dubbed dance magic. Number 2. A Crown and Thorn. After several years as the king of pop, the title began to get to Jacko's head, and he finally learned that, yes, he was royalty after all. He then probably put some high-tech phone to his magical ear and purchased a throne and a crown so he could sit alone in his massive mansion, inventing new songs about himself as king. Of course, everyone knows that Elvis Presley was the true king, and since Jackson married Elvis's daughter, Lisa Mary Presley, he is now the Prince of the United States. But that name has already been stolen by Prince, so it's a royal shamble. Number 1. His many mansions. The Neverland Ranch, as previously described, has already undergone in history as a more contemporary version of Graceland, although a touch more creepy in that loss of innocence kind of sense. Naturally, with such a large wallet and such a well-known power as Jackson's, he had a slew of additional properties on the market. Then there was his 10 million Las Vegas apartment, which had an underground art museum, a secret escape tunnel to avoid cameras, and a wedding chapel. Then there was his 8 million Bahrain luxury house, where MJ went into hiding following his arduous legal struggle. Finally, there was Michael Jackson's 18.1 million mansion in Los Angeles, where the singer spent his last days, the walls where he breathed his final breath, and forever left a strange but dazzling creative void in our musical cosmos. So, which of the 10 expensive things owned by MJ is your favorite one? Do you know what other expensive things that MJ owned? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and we'll see you again in our next video.
Superfinances.